Michael Grant and Rachel Thompson were never meant to be together, but their secret affair set off a chain of events that would end in blood, betrayal, and an unthinkable crime. What started as a passionate escape quickly spiraled into obsession, blackmail, and ultimately murder. When Rachel's body was discovered in a shallow grave, investigators unraveled a chilling story of lies, desperation, and a man willing to risk everything, only to lose it all. Michael Grant was the kind of man everyone in Oak Ridge admired. At 42 years old, he had built a successful career in real estate, providing his family with a comfortable life. He was a devoted husband to Laura and a loving father to 2 children. From the outside, his life appeared perfect, an enviable blend of stability, wealth, and respect. But underneath the surface, Michael was restless. It all began one quiet afternoon when he stopped by a small cafe near his office. That was where he met Rachel Thompson, an 18-year-old barista working part-time while preparing for college. She had a natural charm, a carefree energy that reminded Michael of a time when life felt exciting and unpredictable. He noticed the way she smiled at customers, her youthful enthusiasm making her stand out. When she took his order, she recognized his name from the real estate ads and struck up a conversation. At first, Michael saw nothing inappropriate in their interactions. He enjoyed talking to Rachel, her curiosity about the world, her ambition, and the way she laughed easily. It made him feel young again. He began stopping by the cafe more often, looking forward to their chats. He told himself there was no harm in it. But as the days passed, the conversations grew longer, the smiles lingered, and something unspoken began to build between them. Rachel was drawn to Michael's confidence, his experience, and the way he carried himself. Unlike the boys her age, he seemed sure of everything. He talked about success, the future, and the secrets of business, things that fascinated her. When he casually mentioned his real estate firm was always looking for smart young people to mentor, she jumped at the opportunity. Their first meeting outside the cafe was at his office. Michael offered guidance, sharing insights about the industry. Rachel listened intently, eager to learn. He complimented her intelligence, told her she had potential, and promised to help her. She felt flattered, special. It wasn't long before their meetings became more frequent, moving from the office to quiet lunch spots, where their conversations drifted from business to personal matters. Michael convinced himself he was only helping a bright young woman shape her future. But deep down, he knew the truth. He anticipated their meetings too much. He found himself thinking about Rachel in ways he shouldn't. And when she started texting him late at night, sharing thoughts and secrets, he never told her to stop. Instead, he responded with equal enthusiasm. Then one evening, everything changed. Michael had been attending a work event at a hotel when Rachel texted him saying she was nearby. She wanted to talk, to see him outside of their usual setting. Without thinking, he told her to meet him in the lobby. One drink led to another, and soon they were in a hotel room. That night, the boundary was broken. What had started as innocent mentorship had turned into something else entirely. A relationship built on stolen moments and whispered secrets had begun. But what Michael didn't realize was that this wasn't just a thrilling escape from his routine life. It was the start of something far more dangerous. Michael had always believed he was in control. He had spent years balancing work, family, and social expectations, carefully maintaining the image of a devoted husband and successful businessman. But ever since that first night with Rachel, everything felt different. The thrill of secrecy was intoxicating, and he found himself making excuses to see her more often. What started as occasional meetings turned into regular rendezvous, hidden behind business trips and late-night work obligations. He told himself it was just a phase, something temporary that would eventually fade. But Rachel had other ideas. At first, their affair was effortless, a stolen pleasure neither of them questioned. Rachel was infatuated, drawn to the mystery and danger of being with an older man. She admired Michael's world, the wealth, the power, the confidence. But as weeks passed, her feelings deepened. She no longer wanted to be a secret. She wanted Michael to choose her. Slowly, Rachel's patience began to wear thin. She started questioning why they had to keep hiding, why he was still going home to his wife every night while she was left waiting. She wanted more than secret meetings in hotel rooms and whispered phone calls. She wanted to be with him, openly and completely. When she brought up the idea of him leaving his wife, Michael brushed it off, insisting that it wasn't that simple. Rachel grew frustrated. She started texting him constantly, asking where he was, demanding to know when they would be together for real. If he didn't respond quickly enough, she would call repeatedly. When he ignored her calls, she would send messages filled with desperation, anger, and ultimatums. Michael began to feel trapped. What once felt like an escape from his predictable life had become suffocating. Rachel was no longer the carefree, exciting young woman he had met in the cafe. She had become possessive, unpredictable, and at times manipulative. The pressure escalated when Rachel started showing up unexpectedly. One evening, while Michael was having dinner with his family, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Look outside." Confused, he stepped away from the table, glancing out the front window. His heart stopped when he saw Rachel's car parked down the street. She didn't approach the house, but the message was clear. She wanted him to know she was there. Days later, an envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a letter from Rachel. She detailed everything: their meetings, their intimacy, and her feelings. She wrote that she was tired of being hidden, tired of waiting. If he didn't leave his wife, she would expose everything. Michael felt the walls closing in. He knew he had made a terrible mistake, but there was no easy way out. If Laura saw the letter, his marriage would be over. His children would never look at him the same way again. His career, his reputation, everything he had built would come crashing down. Desperation set in. He had to find a way to make Rachel understand, to convince her to stay silent. But he underestimated just how far she was willing to go. Michael spent the next few days in a state of silent panic. Every moment at home felt like walking through a minefield, waiting for the explosion that would destroy everything. He kept the letter hidden in his office drawer, rereading it over and over, hoping to find some way out of the situation. But there was none. Rachel had made her intentions clear. Either he left his wife, or she would make sure Laura knew everything. He tried ignoring her. Maybe if he stopped responding, she would get tired and move on. But Rachel wasn't the kind of person to be ignored. The messages kept coming, each one more aggressive than the last. "Why won't you talk to me? I won't be treated like some dirty secret. If you don't call me back, I'll tell her everything." One evening, after another sleepless night, Michael made a decision. He had to confront Rachel face to face. He needed to make her understand that he couldn't leave his wife, that what they had was a mistake that had to end. He convinced himself that if he just spoke to her calmly, she would listen. That night, he drove to her apartment. It was late, past midnight, and the streets were quiet. His hands were shaking as he knocked on her door. When Rachel opened it, he could tell right away that she had been drinking. Her eyes were glassy, her movements unsteady. She didn't seem surprised to see him. "I knew you'd come," she said, stepping aside to let him in. The apartment was dimly lit, cluttered with empty bottles and discarded clothes. A half-finished glass of wine sat on the table, next to her phone. Michael hesitated before walking in, feeling the weight of what was about to happen. Rachel didn't wait for him to speak. She started talking, her voice a mix of anger and sadness. She told him she loved him, that she had given everything for him. She accused him of using her, of never intending to leave his wife. Michael tried to calm her down, to explain that it wasn't that simple, but she wasn't listening. Then she grabbed her phone. "I recorded everything," she said. "Our conversations, our meetings. I have proof, Michael. If you walk out that door, I'll send it all to Laura." Michael's blood ran cold. He reached for the phone, trying to take it from her, but Rachel pulled away. A struggle broke out. She clutched the phone tightly, refusing to let go. In his panic, Michael grabbed her wrist, trying to pry it from her grip. She fought back, shoving him. He lost control, pushing harder than he meant to. Rachel stumbled backward, hitting the edge of the coffee table. Her head struck the corner with a sickening crack. She collapsed onto the floor, motionless. For a moment, Michael just stood there, frozen. His breath came in short gasps as he stared at her lifeless body. His mind raced, trying to process what had just happened. Then, reality crashed down on him. Rachel was dead, and there was no undoing what he had done. Michael stood over Rachel's body, his mind refusing to accept what had just happened. His hands trembled as he reached down, pressing his fingers to her neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing. Her eyes were open but lifeless, staring at the ceiling. Panic surged through him, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. This wasn't supposed to happen. He had only wanted to talk, to make her understand. Now she was dead, and his entire life was about to unravel. His first instinct was to call 911. Maybe he could explain that it was an accident, but then the reality hit him. Who would believe him? The police would see the affair, the threats, and the confrontation. They would see a married man, desperate to keep his secret hidden, standing over a young woman's body. There was no way he would walk away from this unscathed. His career, his marriage, his reputation, everything would be destroyed. Michael forced himself to think. He needed to act fast. He grabbed Rachel's phone from where it had fallen, his fingers shaking as he scrolled through her messages. If she had already sent something incriminating, it was over. But as he searched, relief washed over him. There were no messages to Laura, no emails, no calls. The evidence was still in his control, but the body wasn't. Michael knew he couldn't leave her there. The longer she remained in the apartment, the more likely someone would find her. He thought about making it look like a break-in gone wrong, but there were no signs of forced entry. The only fingerprints in the apartment would be his. The risk was too high. He needed to move her. Michael grabbed a bedsheet, his hands slick with sweat as he wrapped it around Rachel's body. She felt heavier than he expected as he lifted her, struggling to keep his grip. He carried her to his car, his heart hammering in his chest as he looked around the empty parking lot. No one was watching. He placed her in the trunk, closing it quickly before getting behind the wheel. Driving felt like a nightmare. Every red light felt too long. Every passing car seemed to slow down as if watching him. His mind raced with thoughts of security cameras, witnesses, anything that could link him to this night. He had to find a place where no one would look, somewhere far enough that she wouldn't be discovered right away. After nearly an hour of driving, he found himself deep in the woods outside town. He pulled onto a dirt road, far from any houses or cameras. The darkness felt suffocating as he dragged Rachel's body from the trunk, carrying her deeper into the trees. His breath came in ragged gasps as he dug a shallow grave, his hands raw from the effort. When it was done, he covered her, making sure the earth looked undisturbed. Standing over the grave, Michael felt a crushing weight settle over him. He had erased the immediate evidence, but the truth wouldn't stay buried forever. Sooner or later, someone would come looking for Rachel. And when they did, his perfect life would come crashing down. Michael returned home just before dawn, his body aching from exhaustion, his mind numb with fear. He scrubbed his hands raw in the sink, washing away the dirt and sweat. He changed his clothes, tossing the ones he had worn that night into a trash bag. Every move felt robotic, his thoughts racing ahead to what came next. He had done everything he could to cover his tracks, but doubt gnawed at him. Had he forgotten something? Had someone seen him? He forced himself to act normal, slipping into bed beside Laura as if nothing had happened. The next morning, Rachel's absence was immediately noticed. She hadn't shown up for work. Friends began calling her phone, leaving messages that would never be answered. By the afternoon, her parents had filed a missing person report. Michael tried to stay calm, keeping to his routine, but he could feel the world tightening around him. News of Rachel's disappearance spread quickly, her face appearing on social media, local news stations, and flyers pinned around town. Days passed, but Rachel was nowhere to be found. Police launched an investigation, questioning those closest to her. Michael knew it was only a matter of time before they reached him. He was right. A detective arrived at his office, polite but direct. "Mr. Grant, we understand you knew Rachel Thompson. When was the last time you saw her?" Michael kept his face neutral, his voice steady. "I hadn't seen her in a while, but she was ambitious. Wanted to learn about real estate, but we lost touch." The detective watched him closely, making notes. "There are messages from her phone showing she contacted you the night she disappeared. Can you explain that?" Michael's stomach twisted, but he forced a calm nod. "She reached out, but I didn't respond. I was home with my family that night." A perfect alibi. The detective didn't push further, but Michael could tell they weren't convinced. As the days passed, the investigation intensified. Rachel's friends mentioned that she had been involved with an older man. Her parents insisted she wouldn't just disappear. And then the worst news: Rachel's body had been found. A group of hikers stumbled upon the shallow grave in the woods, the earth disturbed by rain and animals. Police swarmed the scene, uncovering the truth Michael had desperately tried to bury. Forensic analysis revealed Rachel's cause of death: blunt force trauma. Investigators pieced together the timeline, analyzing phone records, surveillance footage, and witness statements. Michael's carefully constructed life began to collapse. His lies unraveled under pressure, and when the police obtained a search warrant, they found the letter Rachel had written, the one he had hidden but never destroyed. It was over. Michael was arrested, charged with murder. His face, once respected in the community, now filled headlines. His wife and children were devastated, his career destroyed. The affair that had started as an escape had ended in tragedy. No longer a successful businessman, Michael was now just another name in a long list of men who had let desire lead them to ruin.